Today's session is about AI essentials for small business, boost productivity, not fear. We are here today to learn how you can turn your AI anxiety to AI advantage with these beginner friendly workshops to increase your productivity with Seed. This session is about behind the scenes and how you can boost your AI efficiency, compliance, and and manage your risk. So, your business has a lot going on behind the scenes, and AI can help it run smoothly. In this session, we'll explore how AI tools can take the pressure off from your day to day operations by automating scheduling, improving inventory management, and helping you forecast demand for greater accuracy. For today's session, I would like to extend a huge thank you to Jay McDougal. He is our business advisor at Seed, and he's also our AI strategist, coach, and author who helps entrepreneurs leverage AI and modern business strategies to launch and grow successful businesses. With over 20 years of experience in sales, marketing, and leadership, his career has spanned journalism, broadcasting, and marketing. Each role deepening his expertise in business growth, sales innovation, and strategic decision making. Join hands to welcome Jay. Jay, take away the floor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Priyanka. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. And before we dig too deep into this, I just want to say a huge thanks to Priyanka and her team for getting us all thinking about AI and talking about it in this way. It's one of these areas that's moving so fast, right? You're all seeing the headlines. It's everywhere all the time. Every app you open now has like the little button in the corner to add AI. It's just kind of becoming a piece of everything. And people generally are having two reactions. And I see this in my work with my clients at Seed. People either are looking at the headlines, seeing the story, seeing how it's taking over inside of individual applications, and they're sick of it, they're tired of it, they're scared of it, and they're burying their head in the sand and just pretending it doesn't exist, which is one way of coping. And then there's what you're doing now, which is like leaning into the curiosity of it, right? None of us at this point, I think it's safe to say, really know enough to be making a massive decision about what's going to happen. What's the full implication of AI? What does it mean for our individual tasks plus our work? What does it mean for the economy? How does it reshape and have us reimagine how we bring people and talent and task together inside of a business to create something and to accomplish something? Without a doubt, this has the capacity to change all of that. But there's a thing that happens, right? Those are philosophies. Those are ideas that exist 30,000 feet in the air. And day to day inside of our businesses, most of us don't have a whole lot of time to exist at that vantage point, right? You're down in the nitty gritty of it. You've got things to do. You've got tasks in front of you that need to be done. So what most of us are doing is simultaneously, we're wrestling with the big question of what is it? Where does it fit? What's the ultimate implication? But at the same time, we're leaning into it in ways that will allow us to understand it so we can better judge it, so we can decide where it fits in our business and in our workflow. Without a doubt, just like the emergence of social media and going back 25 years, just like the emergence of e-commerce, right now it seems like it's a headline, and it seems like it's the sort of thing that is its own department in your business. It seems like there's going to be job postings for corporate executives, a C-level AI expert. And if you go back 25 years, that's exactly what businesses and corporations were doing with e-commerce, right? When I went to school, the name of the program was e-commerce, and we were living and riding that dot-com bubble of 2001. We were all going to become millionaires because people could suddenly buy things online. But then what happened was eventually, over the course of 2 decades, that work that I went to school to be a specialist on back then is now done by like a high school grad who's been on TikTok and Snapchat since he was 12 years old, right? Like that's just a part of the normal labor force now. That's a skill set that is common, no longer special. So right now, everything to do with AI is special because we're wrestling with it for the first time in short order and a lot faster than the e-commerce part of tech development happened. It's going to just become not a skill that people have. It's going to become a tool that people use as they accomplish the tasks that are required at their job as they execute the talents and skills that they have. So what does that mean for an entrepreneur? What does it mean for you today as someone who just has a job to do, who has a business to launch? And what we're going to explore tonight is the idea of using AI just to find some early stage efficiency. What are the things that we can do right now with AI tools that are available to us right now that can hopefully find ways to create a trade-off between your two most valuable resources? So the things we're going to look at here today are essentially practical automation. And we're going to look right inside of ChatGPT. We're going to build some prompts together. And inside of that process, we're going to look at how you can use practical automation to impact things that are leaking efficiency in your business right now. And we're going to touch on that. We're going to look at an example of that. But next week, next Tuesday, the whole workshop is on automation. And Kim is going to do a deep dive on how you can really explore some tools that are out there that are specifically for this. I'm going to keep it a little higher off the ground and looking just at how you can use the functions that exist inside of ChatGPT to begin to explore what those automations could look like for you. And then as you commit to this a little more, and as your workflow changes, then you might find use cases and certain applications that are using AI technology that might be a better fit, but certainly with a higher price tag for your business. You'll be able to make that decision kind of after the workshop next week. But the takeaway from tonight should be that at least you can start to get your hands dirty inside of the AI tools that exist out there now and begin to see how easy it is to not think of it so much as a computer and as a tool, but as an assistant that you actually have available to you. So we're going to take a look at that. Then we're going to do some really practical data analysis where we're going to, from a fictional business, we're going to load in a year's worth of sales data, and we're going to explore different ways that ChatGPT can help us answer questions. And not so much that it's data that's not available to you in another form, but we're going to show you how you can access that data now conversationally and how you can do it casually rather than exploring spreadsheets and pivot tables and filters and really digging into that. How can we make it very conversational so you can do it on the go? Imagine exploring and digesting a full sales report, but rather than doing it from behind Excel, you're doing it while you're driving over Bluetooth, having a conversation with AI, right? Never sitting behind a keyboard and never typing. That's what we're going to take a look at. And then finally, what does it do for business planning? What does that piece of this look like? How does it shape operations and processes and reporting structures and compliance? How do these things fold in? But also, just kind of like, what does it do? And how does the fact that we have this stranger in our pocket constantly available to us, what does that do to challenge this notion we have of entrepreneurship as a solo sport, right? Are you really alone now if you have the capacity to build out an online team of people around you? Even if they're precursors until you can hire the team as the business grows, we have to kind of begin to get our head in a space where we can create digital versions of these roles and begin to interact with them as we plan our business. So before we jump in too deep, I want to spend a couple of minutes just talking about the resources that you have available to you as an entrepreneur. And this is something I talk to every client about and every workshop that I'm in. And I'm a guy who has spent most of my career in sales. And when you're in sales, you always know exactly how to calculate your commission, right? You always know exactly what your take of something is going to be. Because as a business owner in that scenario, that's the control that you have, right? So for you sitting there right now, if you're in the early stages of your business, what most entrepreneurs have is a whole lot of time and not a lot of money. And the trade-off that we make is that the things we can't spend money on, we put more time into. And this is why entrepreneurs this day and age have to go become experts at every piece of software that is, in actuality, a business specialty that they could go hire someone for. So why are you learning how to build your website? Because you don't want to pay someone money to do it. Why are you in Canva trying to design a logo? Because your business is not yet profitable enough to pay someone to do it. I'm going to add AI to that. Why are you here? Because you're not yet able to engage any of the kind of new round of consultants that exist who are helping corporations and businesses figure out how to best use AI. You're spending time on this so you don't have to spend money. And that is just a growth strategy of a bootstrap or of an early stage startup. And that's to be commended. But there will come a point in time where this necessity will give you a language for how to talk about this. It'll give you an education and how to make decisions around this. And then it's perfectly okay if, as your business grows, you get to a point where you decide to outsource some of this. I liken that to bookkeeping. In my own practice, I always want to know enough about finances and those decisions. I want to know enough to know why I should hire a bookkeeper, and I want to know enough to know how I can have meaningful conversations with them. But I don't want to know enough that I can do their job. That's not my job, right? My job is to run my business. So you're going to set those boundaries for yourself inside of your business. But this exchange of time and money goes back to when you weren't an entrepreneur. It goes back to you having a day job. And the trade off that we all make is that the act of going to work for an hourly rate or for salaried rate, you've all at some point done the math in your head and calculated what your take home pay is per hour. And let's say when you were out in the market making $25 an hour, your take home was, let's for the sake of argument say it was $20. Well, then you go to McDonald's at lunch and you're getting lunch and it's $19 to go through the drive through. And you're sitting there and you're realizing you traded rather, an hour of your time to your employer for the $20 that you got. And now you're trading that $20 for McDonald's. So essentially, you traded an hour of your work for McDonald's. And our entire relationship with exchanging time for money and money for stuff, you start to recognize that we trade our time for stuff. I look around my house at all the junk I've bought over the years, and every one of those things is minutes and hours that I put into some project or some employer. And for some reason, I traded it for this stuff, right? Launching a business is all about knowing where every dollar is and where every dollar has to be. And how we hold ourselves accountable to that efficiency in the early stages is often working long days, putting in long hours, putting in the time because we don't want to put in the money. So, what happens when we need stuff, right? There's a separate conversation to be had about funding and bootstrapping and all that kind of stuff. But there's a reason that efficiency is a differentiator for entrepreneurs. Those who make it are often those who are able to find efficiency. They're curious about efficiency. They're looking for ways to extract the most amount of value from the least amount of time. We all know people who launch businesses, or we launch businesses ourselves, and now we can look back on it and say, we were spinning our wheels in the sand. We were very busy. We were always working. We were always had 10 things to do. We never felt like we were on top, and the business still wasn't working and operating at the level we anticipated. So we were putting in a lot of time, but that time was not converting into a lot of money, and therefore it wasn't getting us a lot of stuff. And that's kind of why the whole thing falls apart. So this quest for efficiency is what kind of drives AI and what we're going to talk about tonight. So I'd like to start out by saying that this is a logo that was designed by AI, and we're going to use this as a bit of a case study as we move through tonight. We're going to pretend that Evergreen Lawn Care is a company that services residential and commercial properties in and around Halifax, and basically they're a landscape company, right? They mow lawns. We're going to keep this nice and simple. As we move through tonight, we're going to look at some practical automations now. I'm going to hop into ChatGPT, and we're going to look at how you can use the tools that are in there right now to help you get out of the cycle of quote, invoice, follow up, get paid, just the really practical stuff that if you have a couple of $100s a month, you're probably going to drop it into a CRM and go spend that. But there's efficiency to be had right now. If you are too early stage to be spending money on those tools, then you can use ChatGPT to perform a lot of this now. And even if your business is already at a point where you don't need to use it for these things, this practice that I'm going to show you, you can use in a whole bunch of applications inside your business. Then we're going to move into the analysis phase where, again, for Evergreen Lawn Care, what we're going to look at is a breakdown of 1 year's worth of sales. I'm going to show it to you in Excel. Then we're going to fire that into ChatGPT, and we're going to begin to make that digestible, have a conversation with the data, and really try to understand what happened in our sales last year, and then how does that inform us as we move forward and have to make decisions about this year. And then finally, we're going to hop into the planning stage, which is where we get to come up out of the ground, step away from the quotes and invoices, rise about 20,000 feet off the ground, and just imagine ourselves as the Evergreen Lawn Care business owners. What's next? What can we learn about what we've done in the past year? How can we brainstorm about what comes next? These are the sorts of things that AI can do remarkably well that In the perfect world, you'd have partners and mentors and investors, but when we're early, we don't always have that. And when we're small, we don't always have that. So what elements of those relationships are possible to be incorporated into AI safely, and what does that practice look like? So that's the stuff we're going to look at tonight. I'm going to hop into ChatGPT. Before I do, I just want to let everyone know I've timed this out so that we'll have a period for questions at the end. But if your question pops into your head, you can throw it into chat as we go. Priyanka is going to keep track of them, and then she'll be sure to make sure we address it before we wrap up here tonight. So just give me 1 second here. I'm going to change my screen and do this here. Okay, so when we hop into ChatGPT, everyone is fairly used to seeing this, right? And my screen's still sharing, right, Priyanka? You can see that? Perfect. So when we're used to doing this, this is kind of what's setting the standard now for why people are slightly underestimating what it is that ChatGPT or that any AI platform can do right now. And it's because it's text-based, right? It's not overly engaging, it's not overly graphical. You are putting in data, you're getting data back. Truthfully, it's just not pretty. And it hasn't been able to adopt like the layout look of Google, those types of things. The fundamental difference is that Google, of course, is going out and scanning the whole internet. And we've convinced ourselves that that's what ChatGPT does, but it really doesn't. It randomly goes out and gathers information and then stores it on its own. And then when you ask it a question, it accesses that information, kind of like its brain, processes that out, and then gives you a response. But what I'm going to show you tonight is a little different. We're going to talk about closed AI. So open AI is what we're normally talking about when we talk about ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or any of these that are out there. Those are language models where the computers have gone out, they've scoured the internet, they've read every article, they've watched every video, they've captured all the knowledge that there is to be had, and then it's at your disposal. We want to harness that and instead say, don't worry about what's out there in the whole world. I want you to make decisions only on the information that I give you. And that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to create, instead of engaging just with the general prompt, we're going to create a project over here on the left-hand side. So I'm just going to create a project. And we're going to call it Evergreen Lawn Care. Whoops. And when I create that project, instead of getting the normal ChatGPT prompt where I can just like add a single file, it gives me some tools. And one of those tools is this internal file structure that is specific to Evergreen Lawn Care. So we're going to be able to upload files that we already have, things that we already know about our business. And then when we ask questions inside of ChatGPT, it's not going out on the internet and asking strangers and every website in the world for information and data. We can tell it, looking specifically at the files that I've given you in the project files, looking specifically at this customer report or the sales report, this is what we want you to do. So we have a couple of files that we're going to preload in there, but let's pretend to begin that what we want to be able to do is in my lawn care business, I want to be able to come back home at the end of the day and take out my scribbler. And inside my scribbler, I have written down the square footage of the 3 or 4 customers' lawns that I've gone out and measured today. Because the way that I decide how much I charge somebody for lawn mowing services is we charge 33 cents a square foot, let's say. So I have names, addresses, and total square footage of every quote that I've done. And now this is so common for contractors. Now I come home and what do I have to do? I have to somehow magically turn all those quotes I captured today, I have to turn those into communications. And we're sitting down and we're drafting emails, or we're skipping that step and we're just sending a text of just the final number. And we're not looking all that professional and we're not looking as put together as our peers. How can ChatGPT help us put that together in a really detailed way? And I'm just going to draft a quote here, a prompt off the top of my head. A couple of things to keep in mind when you're writing a prompt. Tell it what you want it to do. Tell it the format that you want it to output in. So what I want it to do right now is I want to tell it what I'm hoping it will do for me. So I'm just going to say, I'm going to give you a customer name, address, and the square footage of their lawn. Only, we'll spell things properly. Yeah, square footage of their lawn. I bill at 33 cents a square foot. I want you to prepare a quote that I can copy and email to my client. It should include the final price as well as payment options. I take cash or e-transfer as it's paid before the first mowing. Keep it friendly. And then I'm going to say, let's try an example. This is all one post. I haven't even asked her to do anything yet. I'm going to say John Smith, 124 Baker's Lane, Halifax, Nova Scotia, B14R, whoops. Lawn is going to be 387 square feet. So I literally put no particular thought or order into how I gave that information. There may as well be somebody standing on the other side of my desk here that I'm just telling this to like it's an assistant, right? Just like, hey, Priyanka, could you do me a favor? I'm going to give you a customer's name, address, and square footage of their lawn. I bill out at 33 cents a square foot for this job. I want you to prepare a quote that I can copy and email over to my client. It should include the final price as well as payment options. By the way, I take cash and e-transfer so long as it's paid before the first mowing. Keep it friendly. Let's try an example. And then what I'm telling it is every time I ask it for a quote, I'm going to give you the customer's information and the square footage, and then I want you to give me a quote. And now let's see what it gives us. So it's addressing it to John. It's doing the math. It's taking the square footage I gave it. It's using 33 cents a square foot. It's written a little section of payment options, and it's got all of this. Now I'm going to throw in, let's do it again, but always use my name at the bottom. J. McDougal, and the business is Evergreen Lawn Care. So now it's going to rerun that same quote, only it's going to fix the thing that I just pointed out, which is that it didn't have my information in there, right? So now we have this. So now I could do exactly what I said I was going to do, right? I can copy this. I can head over to Gmail. I can paste it and I can send it. But using the project file, we can do a lot more. So let me show you a file that I made. So same logo that I got, just threw this on. This is a Word doc. I've saved it as a Word doc. There's nothing else in it except the logo and my website, and that is absolutely it, okay? So we are going to close this. I've called the file letterhead. And now in the project files for Evergreen, I'm going to hop in here and I'm just going to upload. Where am I at? Okay, so Evergreen Lawn Care. So now this letterhead that's blank, just has a logo, just has a website, it's always sitting there in the project files. So now people are generally really good at doing what I just showed you how to do, right? You ask it to do a little calculation, you ask it to do a little question. But it's really good at taking your content and giving it back to you in a format that you want. So in other words, what if we don't want to send that as an email? What if we actually wanted to take this quote that it just made and we wanted to put it onto that letterhead we just looked at? And then I wanted to give me a PDF. I wanted to just give me a PDF that I can download, attach, right? So we're going to hop in here and we're going to say, let's do it again. This time, output to the Word file letterhead in the project files. Note how I don't have the actual name of the file. Does not matter, right? I've told it where it's at. I've told it what it is. It'll figure it out the same way, God love her, that Priyanka would if I literally just said the letterhead's in a folder, go do it, right? So this time the output, this time output to the Word file, letterhead in the project files, and prepare a PDF for download. And we're going to throw that one in the system. It's going to analyze. It's going to take a minute or two for it to think it through. Ah, interesting. So it's given me the doc file, but not the PDF, but it absolutely will generate a PDF. But these are the sort of wrinkles that are being experienced right now. But if I click this that it did give me, note it named it Evergreen Quote for John Smith. And if I just open that up, you can see it's taken the output that we just got, it threw it on that letterhead. So now I could take that as a PDF. I can just print it off. I can do anything that I want with it. Everything is going to be there. So now let's fast forward in the future and say I just came home. I've got my little notebook and I have all my stuff from today. Um, Today's quotes are done. I need the letters created for. And let's do Jane Smith, Glacial Way, Halifax. Again, talking to it like it's a person. I want them as two files. So I've come home from work. This prompt is still sitting there. It's already there. And now all we're going to do is give it the new information, fold it in. It's going to calculate them. It's going to figure it out. It's going to throw them into that template, and it's going to give us the files to download. And there's Jane's and there's Tommy's. And if we open up either one of these, we have the full formatted letter. Now, obviously, MailMerge was doing this in Word 25 years ago, right? Like this is not a novel concept. What's novel is that it's all at once doing the calculation and the merge. And that because I've created this as a project file, I can come back to this 2 weeks from now, hop in here and talk to it, and it's going to pick up the conversation exactly where I was. And now I have this project sitting here, and what this project always does for me is just my quotes. And maybe I have another quote set up that just handles like overdue payments. You could incorporate that directly into this. You could create another one and upload separate project files. You always have that flexibility. So I'm a big fan of using AI, not just to create the content, we're all kind of there, but to have it create the content in a way that is directly connected to the output. So you're in control of the formatting. If you want it to look a certain way, if you wanted to print it on legal size paper instead of letter size paper, you just program that in. If you wanted headings to be bold, if we wanted the price to not be bold, you literally just say bold this, don't bold that, underline this, don't. You don't have to worry about like, where's the editor? How can I do that? You can just tell it what you want and we'll do it that same way every time. So I know that's not earth shattering, but the process of how to write this prompt is what people struggle with. And I would simply say, just ask it to do what you want and it will figure it out. And if it's wrong, you will find a different way of asking for what you want. And just put the time in. Just put the time into it because that's literally how you train the model, right? The more time that you spend getting it right and getting it wrong, the frustrating thing is when you do this just in normal ChatGPT and then you finally get the output that you want, then you leave and you come back and you start a fresh conversation, we've moved on to something else, and the next time you want that output, you have to reprogram it again. You have to ask for it to be structured in that way again. And if you're working out of the project files, it will always remember that. And to that end, on the project files, you'll note that to the right of the upload section, there's actually an add instructions. And in here is where we could put a simple note like always bold the customer's name, right? Throw that in. Uh, we could have the 33 cents a square foot in here so that at any point we can come in here and change that price, and then all quotes moving forward would reflect that. But you're just capturing that in a spot, and it's always going to be kind of like in its thoughts. So that's interesting. A different use as we move out of practical automation and move toward analytics is let's upload this spreadsheet. And let me show you that spreadsheet at the same time. So this is what the spreadsheet looks like. I will say there's absolutely no information that's real in here. I had ChatGPT create every one of these. But the goal would be, I've told it to create sales transactions for all last year. So from May until October of 2024, I asked it to create about 700 individual transactions. I wanted to know the address. I told it to repeat some customers the same way it would happen in real life. And then I asked it to tell me if they paid in cash or in e-transfer. So you can have this data. And once you have it, you throw it in your project files and you can ask it. Let's see if this will work. So this time I asked it, looking at the Halifax sales data, that's what I'm calling that spreadsheet I just uploaded, how many of my customers paid cash last year? So now it's going to do an analysis of that spreadsheet. And the last column on that spreadsheet was asking transaction by transaction if they paid cash or if they paid by e-transfer. And inside of analysis, like, why do we care about this information? We only ever ask this information of the data that we have available to us so we can make better decisions, right? So it just came back and said in 2024, that's the data we provided, 87 unique customers in the Halifax region paid by cash. But I technically did say how many of my customers paid cash, but you know what I really meant? How many cash transactions were there? Right. So if one customer paid cash every time, but we mowed their lawn 4 times over the course of the year, I'd want to see that more often. So let's take a look at that and say, how many cash transactions were there in total? I just want you all to know that when you're not looking at me, I can type and spell, I swear. So again, this is information that obviously you could get, right? How could you get this in real life? You could open up that spreadsheet. We could sort by that last column, right? So it would stack all the cash transactions, all the e-transfer transactions, and then we could do a count to see how many of those. We could throw a formula into Excel and do like count if this cell equals cash, and it would tell us there was 136. I'm not in no way saying that there are not easy ways to already get this information, but I'm saying none of those other ways are conversational. This is me just having a conversation. I'm pretending as an entrepreneur who literally has been on the tractor mowing these lawns all day. Now I come back and I want to access some information to make some good decisions. And what am I doing? I'm having a conversation with the data, right? How many? Let's go a little deeper. Things that would take us maybe 5 to 10 minutes to pull out of the spreadsheet manually. How many of my customers in 2024 used me in May or June and then didn't call us back again all summer? So I'm asking it, how many customers maybe did turn to me to mow their lawn in May and then in June, but then they got tempted away by a competitor, or they decided they bought a lawnmower and decided to do it themselves. But for some reason, I lost them and they didn't come to me in May, June, or July. And look, I've got 3. Now here's where life gets crazy. Who are they? So now what are we going to do? We've got 3 customers who bailed on us last year. What do we want to do? Do we want to make, there's only 3, so we probably don't want to make like a social media targeted audience and just put those 3 in. So maybe it's just a letter. Maybe we literally drop off a letter. It could be a flyer. I don't even put a stamp on it. I just drop it in their mailbox because I'm still mowing their neighbors' lawns. And now I come in and ask it. Draft a letter offering 25% off for returning customers who subscribe for the 2025 mowing season. So now we're going from the data analysis right into action, right? And we're seeing how we're going to activate that customer. What are we going to do? So again, is this a mail out? Is it a text? Is it whatever? We're going to want to figure that out. Now, look, I have not given it a call to action. So it's flagged for me the fact that, okay, great, Jay, you want them to come back. You want to tell me how you want them to sign up and subscribe, right? So we're going to throw in a sorry. I'm always polite to them for that when they take over the world, they'll remember and be nice to me. So we're going to say, sorry, my number is 902-555-5555. Also, let's output this on the letterhead as well. Now I'm going to go crazy because if this guy that I'm talking to here was actually Priyanka and she was here working on this with me, you know what I might do? I might ask her what she thinks I should do with this. So let's do that. I'm going to give him the number because I need that updated in the letter. I'm going to say I want it on the letterhead as well. And now I'm going to say, I'm thinking of mailing it, but I still mow for their neighbor. I could just drop it off. What do you think? That's right. I'm comfortable enough to ask the computer what it thinks. And now, hopefully, it's going to give me a couple of things. It's going to give me a little bit of feedback on dropping it off. It's going to update the templated response it gave with my phone number. And now it's putting that on the letterhead, which it got from the project files, right? And it's going to give me that as a download. And I do believe, no, it didn't. I thought it gave it to me as a PDF. But now here we have it. It's got the phone number. It's ready for me to print and throw in their mailbox or drop off in person. So this idea of analysis, I want to show you how I use this in real life because this is not emblematic of it. I can't do it because my mic is tied to Zoom right now, but this button right here is dictate. And when you're using it on the computer, it's really just text to speech or speech to text, right? It's hearing what I'm saying and it's typing it. But if you have ChatGPT on your phone, so if you create the project file, put your stuff in that you wanted to analyze, this is when my actual like practical use of how I use this, I'll put the data that I want to analyze into the project file. Then I will go to my car and I will take a coffee and go for a drive, or I'll take the dog and go for a walk. And inside the app on my phone, in the ChatGPT app, I'm talking to it. I'm literally talking to it and it is answering me. So it is a voice saying, that's a smart idea. Dropping it off while you're already on site will feel personal. And I don't know, that doesn't feel all that different from Priyanka standing on the other side of my desk and me having a conversation about how I'm going to work through this problem, right? So it's analysis. I have not showed you anything here tonight that you can't already do manually in Excel or in Word or in 100 other platforms. But you know what you've never been able to do before is have a real world English language conversation with your data. You've never been able to be walking the dog, holding a plastic bag in your hand, right? Because dogs own us. You've never been able to stand there and say, how many of my customers were actually in Bedford last year, right? And now it's the wheels are turning and you're thinking. And that's what takes us all the way to where I want to hop to next. I'm just going to jump back into PowerPoint here. What we've been able to look at so far, it has been, oh, sorry, guys. What we've been able to do so far is the automation piece where we've talked about how you're going to train the model, but then also program the output. That's the using the letterhead, using the logo, telling it exactly what you want it to look like in the final result. Not just the information you want in there, but what you want it to be so that it actually works for you. And then what we've just done with the sales analysis, we trained the model. That is, we uploaded the spreadsheet, right? So you've got the data. You've got a point of sale software that you can export that data out of. You've got an inbox folder full of all the quotes you've done by mail, done by hand and emailed. You can export all of that and chuck it all in here and then engage the model and ask it to provide some analysis. And you get to do that using real language. The difference is when you and I sit down and we look at our sales data or our business information, we are treating it like it's homework and we're looking at it the way an accountant would. And the thing that changes when it becomes discussion instead of content is that it allows you to use a different part of your brain. You're investigating the data. You get to be curious, which you're awesome at as an entrepreneur. You never would have found the opportunity to be in the space you're in if you weren't inherently curious. And now your curiosity is getting you to take side roads and back channels through this data. And suddenly, it's not just a sales report of who your customers were last year. You have an intimate understanding of how your business came together to create the revenue that it did last year. And inside of that comes a whole lot of knowledge. But what are you going to do with that? And that's what sets us up for the next piece, which is as we move into business planning, how do we use these tools that are inside of AI? How do we use them to take away the isolation of the entrepreneur? Look what we just did, right? I just showed you that step by step, we were able to engage with work product and output in the form of a quote generation. We were able to get admin tasks done, like the letterhead exporting ready to email of the file. We were able to get analysis done of real-time sales data. We were able to get AI not to go out and Google the world and tell me what it thinks my business should be. We did closed AI. It was only allowed to look at the resources that I put into the project files. So all of its answers were hyper specific to me and my business. So my project file only had that letterhead in it and then only had that sales data in it. But what if what I had in there was actually like the same FAQ that we built out for my website? And then every time a customer had a question, I came here. And instead of me sitting down and answering the same question for 12 times a week, the way I always do, I'm able to turn to AI. It's got my canned response in there. And I can literally copy and paste the email from my customer, throw it in there, and then it outputs a consistently messaged, consistently branded, always in the right tone of my brand kit. And it aligns perfectly with what I want. And I don't have to make that up all the time, right? So solo no more is the piece of this that I love the most because as entrepreneurs, we sit at our kitchen table or we sit behind our desk. We don't have an early friction point with the market. We have no idea all the time if the market is with us and if we're chasing the right idea. And what this allows us to do is create an early friction point. If any of you have taken any of our programming through the self-employment program, incubator, or innovator, you know the lean startup model leans on the concept of customer discovery. Customer discovery is you having a conversation with a potential customer from your business to learn about their wants and their needs and their pains and the gains that they expect to get when they open up their wallet. Well, you can load all that customer data into AI and then pre-interview a real customer with an AI model first and hear it tell you what it thinks the pains and gains are. And then take that data to tighten up your own customer discovery and go out and do it, or your own customer service execution and go out and do it. The real world application is that you don't have to be alone with your thoughts and ideas. This is a way of expanding that. But it works better when you actually do give it a job. And that's kind of the last thing that I want to talk about tonight is don't be afraid when you create these projects and you give it the data and you're working through the information, just tell it what you want it to be. If you want it to respond to you like a CFO, tell it it's a CFO. If you want it to respond like it's a second year intern, tell it it's a second year intern. If you want it to respond like it is the head of reporting and compliance, upload the reporting and compliance documentations that you're required to follow in your industry, and then ask it if you're aligned. Upload the new policy, upload that new report or proposal you've worked on, and ask it if it aligns with that. If you're someone who bids on government jobs and you're going after requests for proposals all the time, upload the RFP outline and then upload your proposal and ask it if they're well aligned. And it will do that where it can take on the persona of the staff that you only wish you could hire. Now, it's not perfect, and there's all kinds of questions and problems that I'm sure we're going to get to in the Q&A, but in a functional, practical way, it can be the people that you can't hire. So going back to the time is money, creating efficiency inside of your business is going to give you the flexibility to get to the information you need faster, to take the tasking away and let you operate at the deeper thinking level more often inside your business. And if you don't have the team around you, or if you're nervous because you're new at this, you can pre-game all of the conversations you're going to have with mentors and lenders and business partners and potential clients and customers. You can role play all of that out by loading all that customer data into here and then asking it to pretend to be that customer. As a salesperson, I have trained my sales teams by sitting them down across from each other and role playing it out like they were getting ready for a grade 8 play. Because there is no better way to mentally prepare for what that moment is going to feel like than just creating the body reaction, that biological reaction you have to being in that selling or asking situation or that pitching situation. And your ability to create that out of whole cloth with the help of AI, that you're not just playing a game. It's gamifying it a little, but you're not playing a game if the data that's underneath it all is from your real business, if there's actual value in the answers and responses it's giving you. So my final piece of advice is just talk it out. Like, get in there. Don't worry about how you're phrasing the prompt. Just start talking to it. Tell it who it is. Tell it what you want it to do, what role you want it to play, and then go in and ask your questions. And that kind of process of just jump in and get your hands dirty, that's where we all are right now. And you'll learn as you go. You want to double check all of its work. You don't want to trust it to make decisions. You don't want to trust that it got everything right the first time. It's everything going out is still in your name. So you're going to want to proof it the same way you would as if the intern did just write it, right? You're not pawning it off. You're not escaping it, but it's going to be a whole lot less work if you can use some of the practical automations, if you can use some of this analysis, and if you can begin to use it to help you have better, deeper thoughts by using it as a planning tool as well. So that is what I've prepared for the conversation.